Many of our viewers have had moments that are revelatory, that they just all of a sudden everything is okay. It's just presence. It is here and it is filled with this love and this light. And sometimes on smaller scales, it's happening and it's building a reference for future use. And I think that it's very important that people honor that and recognize, and that they don't dismiss these little experiences that are happening along the way. Welcome back to the Art of Awakening podcast, where the art of living awake becomes a daily practice. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter. I'm thrilled to be here with you again today, and very thrilled to be here with a very special guest, Derek Rydall. So he's a transformational teacher, a best-selling author, and a coach, and he's dedicated his life to helping people to align with their own authentic purpose in this world and to step fully into, love this word, liberation and abundance. And so I have known of Derek for many years and have been kind of crossing paths with him along the way. And from the very beginning moments when I was made aware of him through Reverend Michael Beckwith, I knew there was a direct resonance and coherence there. And so I'm thrilled that we're actually getting to sit down and have a conversation with all of you today. So welcome, Derek. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here, for sure.
Oh,
It's a
awesome.
moment that's been highly anticipated in my heart and soul.
Yay. Well, perfect.
Yeah.
It's mutual. So we'll just emanate that out and share it with everyone who's joining us today.
Yes.
As
Should we tell them now that we're just gonna do the whole podcast in silence right now?
we were talking about that, and we decided that, we could really give a more complete message if we didn't have to use words,
Right.
because, the truth is there in the spaces in between. And so we
Yes.
thought maybe we would just sit and be with you guys today.
Yes. We're
But
broadcasting on 2 channels for those that wanna just listen to the silence, and for
yes,
those that
indeed.
wanna listen to the words. You got them
Right,
both.
either way. You can flip back and forth between them as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Derek, I'd love for you just to share just a little bit about, what's going on with you and who you are. For any of our listeners that don't already know who you are, just a little
Mm.
bit about your journey.
Yeah.
I suspect they already sense that you are a kind and lighthearted individual, but let's give them any other juice that might be relevant for them, okay?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to start with my childhood on up, but especially because we're going to be talking also about what's going on in this high tech, low touch, brave new world that we're in. And so I could start there to somewhat that I started off as a coder, a computer geek, and an artist, and I just was creating worlds. In fact, I even built a program to hack the government after seeing the movie War Games and freaked my mom out. And as I grew up, I could take anything apart, but as I grew up and went to school, I got more interested in the brain, the computer in between our ears,
Hmm.
and was going to become a neuroscientist and was like a scholarship student and all of this. And then I fell in love with art and acting and performing, and fell in love with the romance of it all, the poetry of it all, and the heart. And then I became an actor, and while doing a movie, I had a near-death experience. I basically almost drowned in a coral reef. I had a couple near-death experiences, almost dying of an overdose because I'd been chasing self-improvement and fixing myself for years, and it actually brought me to rock bottom because nothing I tried ever improved me. I only improved my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. And but it wasn't any better. And so then I had this experience while I was shooting a movie, and I was trapped in this coral reef underwater. Looked like an underwater booby trap tomb out of an Indiana Jones movie with fire coral and spiked coral, and nobody knew I was there. And there was a moment where I knew I wasn't going to make it. And there was a moment where I knew all that was left was to surrender. And not a bargaining with God kind of surrender. I promise I'll go to church. I actually did that. And God was not playing Let's Make a Deal that day. And there was a moment of actual and total release. And I thought that was the end because I was done. I was out of air. I was out of everything. And in that moment, there was a flash. And in this flash of light, I saw the self I've been trying to fix, change, heal, and improve all my life or for a long time. And it was a fiction. It was an amalgamation of parental fantasy and peer pressure and societal conditioning, and I could see that no matter what I did, I would never make him enough. But at the same time, I saw another self that had never been damaged or hurt, and so he didn't need to be fixed, and he was already whole and complete, so there was no improving upon him. The whole idea of self-improvement was an oxymoron, and I didn't have all the words for it, but I had the awareness of it, and it was a flash, and the next moment I was standing outside of the coral reef on the one piece of coral that I could stand on. I don't remember or know how I got there, but I was free from where I was about to drown. And I was looking at the maze of coral, and it was a metaphor for my life. I've been swimming through this maze all my life, searching, following shiny objects, literally drowning slowly but surely. And in this moment, I was liberated. And I was able to dive over and swim, but everything was glowing, everything was illuminated. I could see the life force. I would just be talking to somebody and I'd be like, whoa. And I would just be seeing the prana and the life force everywhere. And I pulled out of society and I became a monk after that. The monk life didn't work out, but I decided to make my home a monastery, grow for a couple years and go on this journey to understand what had happened to me. And that's what eventually led me to, be called and be pulled to be a teacher and a guide, and where I discovered what I eventually called the law of emergence. And we'll talk more about that because it's connected to everything. And the idea that there's already a pattern in a seed. I saw an acorn and I realized the oak tree was already there in the quantum field. It was already there in the pattern, and that the acorn wasn't an inadequate oak tree, and the acorn didn't prove and earn its oakhood, that the acorn surrendered to the soil. And when the conditions were congruent with the pattern in it, oak emerged. Like a radio station, your favorite song is playing right now. If you knew the station and you just tune your frequency to that frequency, that station will become manifest. You'll have a manifestation. And so it's all here now. And then I went back and read the great works of like Jesus and stuff and was like, oh yeah, I get it. I got it. Yep, totally, man. You're right. And I suddenly saw it all, whereas before I'd used the Bible as a doorstop. So that was the big opening that has led me here. And as we'll talk a little bit more about today, it was a journey of realizing how important our inner technology is. And as we're building outer technology, we have to remember that.
Hmm. Oh, gorgeous. So, wow. So what I know is that our listeners are just absolutely loving this, and the idea of awakening is key. Is realizing what we are not and what we truly are, and making that distinction. And in terms of liberation, this is what's happening in these moments. I just have a quick question while we're going. In those moments where you were, in this other realm and recognizing versions of yourself, a perfected one that wasn't broken and wasn't missing anything and there was nothing wrong. Um, do you have any way to describe for our viewers what you were feeling sensorially at all in those moments? Because a lot of people haven't had near-death experiences, or they
Yeah.
haven't had exalted experiences in meditation, and so I'm always trying to like bring it home in a way that somebody can relate to. I could get there, or I've actually been in that sort of state, and I could start to open up as well. So any physiological cues that you can recall having in those moments?
Yeah, I was really itchy. No. Um, well, actually, I can't really describe there what in that moment, the first time it happened, it was the absence of all feeling. It was just light.
Mhm.
But I've had many, many moments since where I've touched that part again. And and for me it has different moments. Like I remember one other time I was at the gym of all places and I'm working out. I'm running on the treadmill and I'm reading, I think it was Ernest Holmes, one of the old metaphysicians, and he was saying there was one line. It said, "The isn't is the is appearing as the isn't." And my awareness just went satorai. and I'm on the treadmill, and it happens all of a sudden, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself, and something's happening, and I got literally went and sat in the corner, and all of a sudden, this like I was being ministered to by the Spirit, and it was just bliss, and it was like the voice of God. It was just, and it was, and then I was like, I can't. People are looking at me, so then I went in another corner. They're like, "Are you okay?" And finally, I locked myself in the bathroom and sat in the corner, and it was just a feeling of pure, unconditional love and being just fed and ministered to and bliss. And that lasted for days after that experience. But it was just showing me who I was and what was possible. So that was one moment. And I remember another moment it happened where it was just so much joy. I had to g I was like, there was nobody to tell, and I was, like, just, like, in my townhouse at the time in North Hollywood, and I just started to sing, and just sing or naturally because it was so much joy. So there's different sensations that I've had. Sometimes there's a click, and it's like a release valve, and all the stress just and like a liquid peace rises up and fills my whole being. Like I'm feeling it now even as I'm recounting it. So thank you for asking that question. It's important because it's God in a bod, you know?
Right. It's a well, this is what we are, right? And it when we have these glimpses, when we have connections and we can draw correlations on because I would venture to guess that many of our viewers have had moments that are revelatory, that they just all of a sudden everything is okay. It's just presence. And it is here and it is filled with this love and this light. And sometimes on smaller scales, it's happening and it's building a reference for future use. And I think that it's very important that people honor that and recognize and that they don't dismiss these little experiences that are happening along the way um, because they keep dialed into the wrong radio station when they keep, evaluating and judging and et cetera.
Right.
So
You can dial into KLACK, KLAC, or KRACH, K-Joy or Killjoy. You have a choice.
yes.
And if you're right, even if it's just that little pinprick of light, as Michael Beck with Dr. Michael says, that
Yeah.
little pinprick, if you start to get attuned to looking for and listening for and noticing, it may appear as a little pinprick, but imagine there's this butcher paper, black butcher paper, and poked a little hole in it, but behind it is all of the light. And
Yes.
so if you just focus on that little pinprick and just that little grain, of goodness and just meditate on that, and then come back the next day or the next hour, and you can bring your attention back to that feeling again. And eventually, like the radio analogy, you create a preset on the dial where you can just go boop right to KJoy, boop right
Yep.
to KGOD, boop right to K-Rich. And then as you said, it starts to build up, a playlist, and you can start to really have the soundtrack of life and love and light always running in the background, even in the midst of whatever you're going through or growing through. So it's beautiful.
Yes, yes, and it filters into every interpretation that you have, every translation, every perception that comes from it from this new perspective, this new
Exactly.
filter. Yeah.
Exactly. Where you're
Mhm.
looking from, what you're looking through, and what you're looking for. Those are for me the three perspectives because
Yeah.
we're all looking from different anchor points and foundations, and we're all looking through different frames of reference and filters, and we're all looking for either what we want or what we don't want. So it all makes a difference.
I think that is a fabulous little moment right there. Is a fabulous consideration. Is people are so used to attuning to what they don't want in order to figure out what they do want, that they first have to live into what they don't want to make those distinctions, right? And, what if we had permission to just begin with what we do choose? And what if we could validate it and honor it with the same kind of certainty and clarity that we do when we have these moments of recognizing what we don't want? And
Yes. Yeah, what you don't want will come, you don't have to work for it. You'll have plenty
Right.
of opportunities to know and feel and experience what you don't want. So yeah, focus on what you do. It's kind of like the analogy, I'm sure you've heard of it. When a race car driver is training, they spin out and they spin out towards the wall, right? That's what they don't want. That's the problem. That's the metaphor of the problem. But everything in your body wants to look at the wall. I got to make sure I keep my eye on that wall so I don't hit it. But the hands, when the eyes follow the hands. So if your eyes are looking at the wall, you're gonna steer right into it and you're gonna hit it. So you have to train yourself even against almost an evolutionary drive in your body. Sometimes you have to force your head to look to where you wanna go, even while the car is sliding towards the wall. And if you do, the hands correct, the car catches, and you're back on track. Now, not every time, but you're guaranteed to hit the wall if you look at it. And so with our problems, with what we don't want, evolutionarily, we've adapted for survival. And so you wanna see that little bush shaking, and you know just the way that's shaking, that's either the wind or that's a saber-toothed cat, right? And so, you go and you look for what's lacking in the area, not just what is, so that you know you can survive. But that only takes us so far. So yes, absolutely, when we train ourselves to look at where we wanna go, another way I say with the self-help industry is inadvertently self-help and success and all of this stuff, even spirituality and navel gazing, we've retrofitted our car. So now we have giant rear view mirrors and tiny little windshields. And so we're always looking at ourself and our past and our problems instead of a giant windshield and a tiny rearview mirror. Yeah, look at what's behind you, look at your past, look at your stuff, but mostly look at where you're going and where you want to go and the possibility. And that's how real evolution and expansion happens.
Right. We're training ourselves to use our faculties for what they were actually built to be used for in terms of our creatorship and being innovative and allowing ingenuity to really be fueling the journey. And it's a
Right,
tough.
God didn't if the great creator didn't look and go, "God, look at this place, there's nothing good here, I better create something." It was just, "I am everything, what can I make out of everything?"
Right.
It's pure fulfillment if that's to come from. It's like we're not on our way to God or heaven or wholeness or harmony or love. We're literally coming from it on our way to an ever greater unfoldment or expression of it, right? The branch isn't on its way to the tree, the wave isn't on its way to the ocean, the ray of sun is not on. Everything is emergent. Everything is coming from wholeness and abundance and ah,
Mhm.
just, it's so good. I have to love. It's so good. I have to give. I have so much. I have to circulate it. That's the come from that is difficult, but is worth working on, getting us back to that.
The hard part's getting to the easy part because once we're tuned
Yeah.
into that, it is that, the entire cosmos is in favor of what we're doing. The entirety of creation, the manifest world is wants us to be in the driver's seat in that way, facing forward, instead
Yes,
of
that and
facing
that's what
backward.
that there's a scripture that says, "You are my beloved in whom I am well pleased." So, "You are my beloved" is always true from the divine perspective of this unique expression of itself called you and me.
Right.
But "in whom I am well pleased" is, and you're allowing that I've given you, the grace of God to unfold. And therefore, as the line completes, "all that I have is thine." You are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased, and all that I have is yours. Saying, when you are willing to be an ambassador of heaven, an ambassador of the real world, and you are willing to let what's in you come out, as the poet Browning said, to release that imprisoned splendor, now all of life, all of universe, all of your divine inheritance is yours. The trust account opens, and you can start making withdrawals, so to speak.
You're finally 21.
You're finally 21.
Yes, how beautiful. I often ask people, who would you be being if you were already inside of Heaven's Gate? Who would you be being today? How would you be operating? What would the circuitry in your system be running and expressing? Not earning and not trying and not, efforting in order to get somewhere, but rather just
Exactly.
in pure celebration of that.
And not waiting, waiting till you
Right.
feel certain, waiting till you're not afraid, waiting, waiting, waiting. And I like to say this is the ultimate weight loss program. You can lose all that weight, get off your big fat assets and let it express. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, beautiful. So, to cultivate this inside of someone listening to this program right now, and then when this program's over and they walk into life and something else comes up on the news, daily news, urgent, references of what's just unfolded today in the world somewhere, how do you recommend that people respond in that moment to be able to be in both worlds effectively and to be a beneficial presence on the planet, not hide and not stick their head in the sand, and at the same time not be buckled over by what appears to be an entire rearrangement of reality as we knew it?
Yes. Well, the first thing I would say is turn off all the news until you're strong enough to let it be a prayer request.
Yeah.
Because if and that's what I did when and I know there's no everybody has the luxury of it, but you would be surprised if you're listening, if you're on social media and on the news, how very, 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 very little value you're actually getting from it. And you don't know until you turn it all off, and you're like, it takes a while. You have to go through the, the whatever the detox, but then you're like, oh, it's like, going into what's that called? The cage where no EMFs can get into, a Faraday cage where suddenly no EMFs can get in there at all. And it's like, whoa, it's so clean. So that's the first thing. And that's what I did. I turned off all the news. I got rid of everything and I just meditated and prayed and read and studied. Because here's the thing, the world has influence over us directly proportionate to our lack of influence over ourselves. So, the original OG self help guru, the Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. That's step one. If you don't know yourself, and especially nowadays with all these algorithms running and media pumping us with its brainwashing ideas and everybody's agendas to control and manipulate and do whatever, if we know ourselves less than these machines and these algorithms know us, guess who's using who, right? We thought Facebook was the product when social media came out, and then we discovered we were the product. So we have to first know ourselves. And then also free will. You don't have free will until you have expanded awareness of what's running you. Before then, you have free won't. And it's just resistance and waiting. And you're just, literally the light might be on, but nobody's home. You're just, people are afraid robots are going to replace them, but programs have already replaced most people. And so knowing ourselves and then knowing what's really running me, knowing what I really feel, what I value, and then to thine own self be true, getting good at knowing myself and being true to myself. That's the wax on, wax off of personal transformational martial arts, is just know yourself, be yourself, know yourself, be yourself. But that takes time. And I'm not, again, even if you can't turn it all off, you can turn it down and take more time to get to know yourself, to what you care about, to what you really want, not what you think you can have, what you should have, who you should be, who you can't be, but what is there behind that that false self that I was talking about. You can tap into it behind the parental fantasies and peer pressure, and there's a desire that the world didn't give you. Desire means of the sire, of the father, and also of the stars. So there's something about you that nobody gave you and therefore nobody can take away, no matter what's going on out there. There's a source and an original source code and a freedom and a joy and a power that Mandela found 27 years in prison, the captain of my soul and the master of my fate. That's in all of us. But we have to go into our closet and shut the door, so to speak, and get still, which is one of the hardest things increasingly, and get quiet. And even if it's just 10 minutes a day, even if it's just I would normally spend 10 minutes in the morning when I wake up and turn on my phone and quickly look at what's going on. maybe just do the first 5 minutes like this, and then you can get on your phone for the next 5 minutes. We'll titrate the medicine. But that's what I would say. You got to know yourself. You got to know what you really believe and feel and care about, what you really want, and get anchored there. And as you start to get that foundation, now when the world hits you, if it, again, I just really want to say, you don't have to watch the news. Believe me, if there's anything worth knowing, you'll hear about it. But nevertheless, when the world hits you, then you can start to notice. And also, it's important to understand that none of that out there is doing anything to us except it's a way of squeezing us. And when life squeezes you, what comes out is what was already in you. So it's like, oh, thank you for showing me that I still have this fear. I still have this judgment. I still have this whatever. That's awesome. Now I know what to work on tomorrow or right now. I know to go there and now love that part of me, love that shadow, love that, be with that. It's all, as Shakespeare said, it's all a stage. And like the great play, it's holding up a mirror to show humanity who we are. But again, that's easy to say, and that might be like, wow, that's really cool. But if you don't have a little bit of space in you, you're just metal to metal, no brake pads. You gotta take your vehicle to the shop and spend some time to get a little space so that you can be response-able
Mhm.
rather than reactionary. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And the spaciousness is the only place that that true self can be known because
Yeah,
it's not reactionary. And so if we're dialed into the reactionary radio station,
exactly.
soulful presence can't present under those frequencies and under
And
those
especially
circumstances.
if you're I was if you're listening to this, you probably are listening to Dr. Sue a lot and other things like that. You are activating your field and your frequencies, and that life force is trying to come through. But it's like you've planted seeds, but then there's cement over it. And what'll happen is when those seeds bloom and when that tree gets big roots, it's going to tear up the cement, knock down the walls, and it's going to look destructive, but it's really life and love breaking through. But you don't have to wait until this truth in you starts tearing down walls and breaking up your sidewalk and knocking over your house. That's why you want to do it consciously, intentionally, and proactively, not wait till a crisis brings you to your knees and then you start praying.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. And so, in a moment where someone is feeling, disconnected from what we're speaking about, when what we're reminding them is true and valuable and ever present, and someone wakes up one day and they've just had a little too much input of a different sort, and they're really collapsed in on themselves, and they're completely particle and not wave. They're a substance instead of an essence, and they're feeling like they're just barely getting by, whether it's financially or emotionally, or they start drawing up all the things that validate what they're feeling in this moment. What would you recommend right there, even before their feet hit the floor or before they get out and start impacting the rest of the world with what's happening and churning inside of them? What's a go-to right then for people?
Well, the first thing I mean, when I hear that, believe me, I understand. I've been through so many challenges. I have my own little Job story, First a divorce after 23 years, and then my fortune was stolen from me, and then my son died, and my wife got cancer. Like, so I understand, and I have such compassion and such just deep, deep compassion. So my first reaction, and I'll tell you what I do, is whatever's coming up in you, it's not about like, do some positive thinking quickly, because that's like you falling in quicksand. Get out. It's going to pull you deeper. Is when you notice the fear and the contraction and all that coming up, as best as you can, just try to practice for the first few responses to just hold that part of you. And you can even do it with physical, like put your hands on your heart or imagine it's like a child in your arms that's having a bad dream and you just rock him or her and just bring compassion. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not bad. You're not unspiritual. You're not stupid. You're just hypnotized like all of us, or you caught a thought virus that you didn't create. It's not your fault. You didn't create these thoughts. These thoughts were here before you came here. And yes, maybe I will look at later, you catch a virus because your immune system isn't as strong as it could be. We can build your immune system up. But right now, you don't go, dang, you just meet it with love. And that creates a little bit of that space, right? As Jesus said, love your enemy, and the enemy is in your own household. So that fear, that worry, that doubt, that contraction, that story, don't try to fix it when it triggers you. Bring love, bring compassion as best you can. And it's like a meditation, right? You'll do it for like 2 seconds, and then you bring it back, bring your attention back. Oh no, but, and then you bring your attention back, and then you'll build that muscle to just begin to have some equanimity, a witness ability, to begin to realize I'm not the thought, the story, the feeling, the sensation. I'm the consciousness in which it is happening, and I can hold it. And so your capacity for holding gets stronger. And I will dare say, even that's the purpose of that challenge. You go to a gym and you lift weights and you tear muscles, you traumatize your body. But the result is, if done correctly, an evolutionary response that sends more energy and makes that part of your body able to hold more load. Same thing with going to school. You don't go to school for safe spaces and trigger warnings. You go to school to have your brain hurt and to have yourself challenged and to be like freaked out by and excited by, and it's literally a physical activity. You're growing new neural pathways and neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, and that's why your head literally hurts sometimes. It's tearing down parts of you, but just enough that it creates greater resilience, anti-fragility, and also greater capacity. Like, when you see the freeway and it's a mess and it's traffic because they're building, that's because they're adding a lane, and pretty soon it's going to be easy flowing. So this challenges you're experiencing is an opportunity to get stronger. And then that used to be such a big deal, it'll be like, "Psh, no problem. You can lift that weight, no problem." So that's the first thing I would say is bring compassion. Understand life's not happening to you. It's actually happening for you. I know that sounds like a cliche. But cliches are cliches because they're based on truth. And then once you find some degree of space or peace, only then now anchor yourself in some activity, whether it's bringing your attention back to what do I really want, not what do I don't want. Where do I really want to go? And now you can anchor it from that foundation so that you're coming from a little more space, a little more peace, and it's going to not, it's going to be a little easier to do that. And, and everything else we've been talking about. So that's where I would first meet it with love and compassion, breathe, become still, create space, find a bit of relief and peace. And if you struggle with that, find certain other tools like music, sounds, listening to Dr. Sue, getting up and moving or dancing. Like every morning now, I have a ritual where I wake up before I even get out of bed. I'm in prayer. And then while I'm falling asleep, I'm in prayer and meditation. And and then I wake up and I go and I do a few things. I mean, I kiss my wife and I take a cold shower, and then I turn on this music and we dance. One's called like It's a Great Day, and this other one's It's Gonna Be a Great Day, and look at God, and I'm dancing and I'm moving my body and opening all the channels and just joyful. And it's created a new set point because I used to always wake up groggy and not happy, even not that long ago, because my childhood was always tumultuous in the morning. And parents, I'd be woken up by fights and all this stuff. So my nervous system was like, something's going to happen. So, but I retrained it by, even when I didn't feel like it, turning on the music and letting it move me. And the body is the quickest way to get home and to get activated versus in our head. So that's just gives a few ideas, and then people can stack, and you build a practice so that you win the morning, you win the day, you kind of set the tone. And you can do it anytime during the day, but ultimately that's a powerful opportunity you have to set the tone every morning that way.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I love this.
And
So,
we also do your yoga too. Not every morning, but
beautiful. Yay. Body
we did it
awake.
for a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yes, it's about building circuitry in the body so that this energy can move and can flow, and
Yes.
having awareness of the greater and invisible version of ourselves coming through the visible version of ourselves. And I think
Exactly.
it's really what you're referencing here is the consciousness that's holding the space for all of this is the one that we are. And
Yes.
so when our thoughts come through, we have to love those thoughts. When we can move that energy with the breath, then the thoughts shift as well. And when we
Exactly.
carve pathways of regularity and have circuitry that is our new default,
Yes.
even when we become overwhelmed, we're not falling as deeply as we used to. And
Exactly.
and one thing that I love to share with people is that when we do fall into the heaviness or the confusion or the self judgment, it's actually when great work is being done. So it's not
Yes.
just about escaping these deep, dark crevices that we find ourselves in. It's about bringing the light that we are into these deep crevices and allowing that light to
Yes.
shine in those vibrational frequencies too. Because when they're all embraced, we begin to embody a greater version of ourselves, the full keyboard, instead of only trying to escape to, these upper octaves that are more delightful because they're more
Yes.
familiar to
Yes.
us. So I
100%. I mean, I'm sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to always think, yeah, it was about being an ascended master, whatever, and it's like, no, we really have to become a descended master. And, everything on this earth first goes down and then it grows up. And so, and that's the shamanic way as well. And yeah, a lot of times this desire to ascend, to awaken, it's really often a reaction to early trauma and to a need to dissociate from our body and our pain and the world, and it's too much. And so we go into nature, go into God, go into create. And now the result is we do make a connection, and that's beautiful. We do are available to these other realms of nature, creativity, spirituality. But then for a lot of people that are on this path, they're they're still disconnected. And if they just start to bring whatever light and love and truth they've touched, now the real work begins. Bring that to what you just said, that crazy thought, that fear of your not sharing your voice, that pain in your heart, that ache in your belly, that whatever, and bring it all the way down. And and there's obviously various ways to do that. Your yoga, shadow work, breathing in general, just all kinds of ways. But that's the real work, right? Is like obviously you still want to keep expanding, because you can also be somebody that gets caught in just always doing work on yourself, always doing work on yourself. And then again, that becomes the automobile with a giant windshield and a giant rear view mirror and a tiny windshield. So, yes, do all that work in service to knowing why and where you're going. It's not, I'm broken. I got to keep working until I'm fixed. It's not, I'm inadequate or unworthy. I got to work on all my dark places so I can become better. That's not the way you want to go. It's it's fine tuning and it's integrating, and as you said, it's understanding that all of these challenging things are really the raw materials of alchemy, right? The darkest, richest soil is the greatest thing to grow stuff in, but it's made of everything that has died and decayed. So so it's like it's not a problem when you work with the rich, smelly soil. It's not because the soil is broken. It's because I could grow some great tomatoes here, So that's how to think of it, so that it's a growth, but it's you have to have yourself and your life aimed, right? Where in the Proverbs it says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish."
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't say where there is no vision, the people have a bad day, they don't lose those last 5 pounds.
No,
It
they
says they
perish.
die. Right? They die. If they don't
Yeah.
die literally, they become the walking dead. If you wonder why we have so many zombie movies and TV shows, newsflash, no, there's a lack of vision. There's a lack of, you know, we're so in front of what's going on in this, and it's all designed to keep us scared and hijack our limbic system and make us reach for that pill or that food or that remote control or Netflix and chill. And I'm not against a lot of these things, but again, but if you have a vision, if somebody asks me, well, how's your day going? I go, I don't know how my day's going, but I know how I'm going about my day. Right? It's like, how's life treating you? It's like, I don't know and I don't care. I know how I'm treating life. I'm life and I'm treating myself well. How about you? So it's like, and when emails come in and news comes in, it's like, well, I know where I'm going. Is this going to help me? No? Okay, then I'm not interested. And so you got to have, and we were evolved to be target seeking creatures. It's why we have the whites of our eye, so you can see where people are aiming at. And so we evolved to be target seekers. In fact, as I'm sure you know, the word sin is an archery term. It means to miss the target, to miss the mark. So if you don't have a target, you're sinning. If you have too many targets, you're sinning. If your target's too low because you're just choosing the one that's safe and convenient and comfortable, you're sinning. But that just means
You're
pick a
missing.
better target
Yeah, you're
and,
missing
and
the mark.
aim.
All right.
You're missing the mark.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when you get you as Michael, our mutual, my mentor really, and your friend,
Yeah.
um, he says, the pain pushes until the vision pulls.
Mhm.
You want to be pulled by a vision, not just pushed by pain. Like I
Right.
said, I think we were talking before, we'll have plenty of opportunities to get pushed by pain. So let's focus
Right.
on being pulled by a vision too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of things, and I know, gosh, time's just flying here, but I just want to squeeze another question in. What when people are hearing this right now, and oftentimes the idea of, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what to be focusing on, how do I find my purpose, how do I, and I speak about this a lot
Of course.
inside of all of the coursework that I do, and the book that I just wrote, and these kinds of things. But I'd just love to hear you speak a little bit about this as well, um, letting people take the pressure off regarding purpose in life, and just by speaking into this a little bit for people. What can you
Well,
say?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to say about it. People are like, what's a purpose? What's a vision? What's a mission? What's the difference between a job and a career and all these things? But I would also say that how I want to frame it is that I have a new book coming out too, or maybe it'll be out when people listen to this, called A Whole New Human. And it's the 10 evolutions we have to make to survive and thrive in the AI age, the age of disruption, in this brave new world where increasingly algorithms and machines and AI is going to do what humans do better, faster, cheaper. And it really, you know, calls the question, well, what's a human really for? And that gets back to, what's the purpose of humans? What's the purpose of us? And what is it that's going to make us still valuable and necessary and irreplaceable in an age of machines, in an age of algorithms, where literally the stated mission of the big companies is to replace all human labor, not to mention potentially replace human relationships, because you can just have a chatbot friend. But it's also an existential crisis and an inflection point, because it's going to force us to do everything we've been talking about. Is not just something you do at Omega Institute or at Esalen or at a Dr. Seward retreat. This is what you want to make daily front and center, because your survival depends on it. But more importantly, this is what we've been preparing for, to become more than we imagined in all that we were made for, like conscious God in a bod, conscious biology, the capacity to create out of nothing, the capacity to think beyond all circumstances. That's why we are made in the image and likeness of the Creator, because bam, we are the Big Bang machine. And so, but we have to claim that. We have to remember that. We're not just these little puny little, atomized things in a dark, cold universe. We are literally a portal of heaven itself. In fact, in Sanskrit, human means the dispenser of divine gifts. So the first thing to understand about purpose is everybody's purpose at the most fundamental level is the same, which is to be a dispenser of divine gifts, to be an instrument, an expression, a unique and unprecedented expression of reality, of life, of God, of good. Like every flower, its purpose is to bloom and to flower and to flourish. And then within that purpose, we all have unique missions, unique lanes, unique domains that we have been uniquely designed for, and our life experience has uniquely prepared us for. I like to say the workshop you've been living is the one you're meant to be giving, right? So it's not an accident. Your pain, your problems are preparing you for your legendary purpose. Now, purpose doesn't mean you have to be on the cover of a magazine or have a million likes or hang out with the Kardashians or whatever your version of it is. Again, when a flower's blooming on the side of the hill and it's dealing with the wind and the rain and it blooms in this unique way like no other, and nobody ever sees it. Is it not
Mhm.
living its purpose? Is it
Mhm.
less than? It's changing the whole frequency of the world. And we
Mhm.
may not know it, but it does. And
Mhm.
so, it's like, like that kid in the analogy of with the starfish, and there's all these starfish washed up on the shore, and he's
Right.
throwing them back one at a time. And this very conservative businessman comes in and says, "Kid, what are you doing? You're wasting your time." I don't know why he just got a mafioso town, but he's like, he's like, "That's not gonna help, that's not gonna make any difference." And he picks up one starfish and he goes, "It made a difference to that one." That's what purpose is. Are you making a difference that you really want to and that you're made for today? Right? And then it's like, what's just that little difference? And the first thing to understand is you've got one job that only you've got, and that is your purpose, which is tend to the seed of the divine in the soil of your own soul first. That's one job. God's like, I gave you one job, kid. Tend to that seed, make it grow. What are you doing over here? Get back over here and start making that thing flower and flourish. Feed it, water it, love it, pray to it, speak to it, tell it how beautiful it is. Like, so that's our first job of our purpose is we've been given this magnificent seed of the divine, a pattern of purpose and potential. We have to, this is also the first commandment, love God with all your heart and soul. That's the God of your own being. Now you start to blossom and you have fruits. Now love your neighbor as yourself. Give them the fruits. Don't
Mhm.
give them your roots, give them your
Your
fruits.
fruits. I love it.
I want to be like, give them your fruits, like a Jewish mother, not your roots,
I
your
told you.
fruits. So that's what when I think about purpose. First is love yourself and be yourself. Know yourself and be yourself. That's the most important first step. And then whatever fruits or overflow, now that belongs to the community. Give that to the world. And then another harvest will emerge. And now you create the circuit of circulation, and wherever there's circulation, there's abundance. And I think that's, obviously there's more we could say, but that's how I would begin to think about it.
Mm.
And
So
in this age, well, I'll just add one thing again. In
yeah.
this age, knowing that, getting on that beam, it's no longer a luxury. I don't mean to pressure you, but I kind of do. Not you, Dr. Sue, but sometimes you have to comfort the afflicted, and sometimes you have to afflict the comfortable. And and there is a tsunami cresting. There is a meteor heading for Earth, and a lot of people are acting like characters in that movie Don't Look Up. So maybe don't look up, but look within, and 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 prepare yourself. Make it a priority. There's nothing more important than knowing who you are and why you're alive and committing and aiming your life at that. And you can always start with just a little bit. You know, you don't have to run a marathon today, but you could walk around the block. And tomorrow, maybe you'll walk around it twice. And by the end of a month, maybe you'll be running a mile. But, like when's the best time to plant a tree? 30 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. And it's going to be increasingly important. And if you have loved ones, family, friends, children, um, they need to understand the massive changes that are coming and how now's the opportunity to become what they've always been meant to be. So that's the really good news. And that's what I obviously guide them with in my new book.
Mhm. Tell us the name of the book again?
It's called A Whole New Human,
Whole New
The
Human.
10 Evolutions We Must Make. The 10 human evolutions we must make, or the 10 evolutions we must make. Do I have a
Beautiful.
copy here? Oh, yeah, I think I actually, believe it or not, I have a
Bring it,
copy. There
bring
it
it.
is.
There it is. Now we can recognize it, and
Yeah.
it's releasing.
It's February 24th. They can pre-order it too. And when they do, I've also built these tools based on 25 years of research, training, hundreds of thousands of coaches and creators and entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
I've installed this information for the book and everything into an AI so that they will have their personalized evolutionary coach, focus coach, like having me in your pocket 24/7 to ask, well, how is this going to affect my children? Or I want to go to school. What should I study? Or, whatever. I don't know what I should do. And so it'll help. It won't just be a generic response. It's based on all this research and all this work I've done. And it'll help them get answers instantly. And again, not as a crutch, as I talk about in the book, I'm not a Luddite, I'm not anti-tech, I'm just very pro-human technology, right? We're the creator of tech, not the other way around. And we're the original AI, ancient and ancestral and angelic intelligence. And so we have to remember that, like that we're the killer app the world is waiting for. And so, but you can use that technology as a master pattern recognition to get to know yourself better and then to see some of the things you have blind spots on, and I talk about how to do this. And then as you do get to know yourself more, now you can use technology to scale love and scale service and scale authenticity and all of that. But first, you have to get it in yourself. And so it's understanding that you're not the tool, it is. And I show people how to do that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my goodness. So we're going to make sure that those links are in the show notes, people to be able to get to you. I'm sure they can get the book wherever books are sold and also from your website.
Yeah, they can just go to derekrydall.com, DerekRydall.com. Right on the homepage, you can click to see the book. You'll see all about it, and then you can enter your information there, and then you'll get access to these tools and other free trainings, as well as live coaching with me. I'm just kind of giving a lot to people because this is a big part of my mission. Yeah, just real briefly, about 6 years ago, even before ChatGPT or anything, I was meditating and this voice came through and said, "Build the ark, the flood is coming." And I'm like, "What?" And it showed me what was going to unfold, all the disruption, all of the, massive disruption socially, economically, and that this was going to be a major existential crisis and inflection point that would make COVID look like a sneeze in the wind. And and that it was gonna happen fast, not like previous industrial revolutions that took 80 years or more, where we were all farmers and then we were no longer farmers. That's a big shift, and that's what's happening now, but it's gonna happen faster. And it showed me all that, and I'm like, "Why me? I'm not a tech guy anymore." And it's like, hello, you've been literally working on human inner technology for 25 years.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
where we need to put the capital. We need to invest in human technology at least a little bit as much as we are in outer technology. Otherwise, we will end up with a science fiction dystopia where you always see all the technology evolves. It's amazing. We can go to Mars and go everywhere, and we're just destroying ourselves with bigger guns and bigger bombs and crazier things. That's what happens when technology grows and human wisdom doesn't. And
Mhm.
so we have to double down on our wisdom and on embodying and becoming this whole new human, which really isn't new. It's the original human and
Yeah.
everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's just a great remembrance and pulling things together in modern day
Yeah.
circumstances, and so I look forward
Yes,
to reading it, and,
absolutely.
thank you for sharing it here today so that people can find it, absolutely. It dovetails so much with the book I'm releasing a month later, which is The Anatomy of Awakening, and it is truly about awakening in body form and
Yes.
bringing the divine, here. I originally named the book The God Body, but we changed it
Ah,
just to, kinda soften the blow for some
right,
that might have been
right.
a little,
Don't like the word
s
God as much or
right,
yeah.
sensitive, so but it is what we're talking about, that we are source, and we are here to animate that and to bring it forward as this frontier of consciousness, and so may these 2 books serve humanity in a beautiful way. Derek, I have loved speaking with you today. It's really been a delight. It's really been a joy. I'm sure that you get that response everywhere you go. I don't always get to say that. I've hosted a lot of things in my life and been, in a lot of conversations, and it's just such a delight to be in the fluidity of you and have it be truly soaked in love the way that it is, just is everything. So thank you for being
Thank you,
here for
Dr.
our
Sue.
audience today, and
It's my honor, and
for
me and my wife are super fans of yours, and I just love you and appreciate you and all the work you've done. And way back then in those years, you were even trying to help and support me in some things, and I just am so grateful for the work you're doing in the world, as is so many people in my community who love you. And it's an honor to be here and to be able to share with your community.
oh, how beautiful. So may it be the first of many. Okay, let's find ways to play together and to help serve humanity in all sorts of creative new venues. All right.
Yeah, we'll put the whole new human and awakening. What's it called?
The
Awakening,
anatomy of awakening.
anatomy
Yeah.
of awakening together in a bundle, and then we'll have the workshop, God in a Bod.
You got it. I'm in. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. So thank you for being here again, and also want to thank all of our listeners for spending this time with us on the Art of Awakening podcast. It is so important that we come together and remind each other of who we are and share that with as many people as we possibly can. So do share this episode with your friends to really allow this message to infiltrate our beautiful, evolving humanity. So we're here bridging science and spirituality to create a life that you truly love living. Until next time, I'm Dr. Sue Morter. Blessings, blessings to you all. Namaste, everyone.